a lot of these people who want this hands-off experience, so many times it ends up in failure.
Anytime you're building out a CRM, I don't care, even if it is out of the box, systematizing your processes within that CRM is going to suck. No matter how easy it is or out of the box, it's going to suck.
And a lot of people are just like, I just want to press a button and do this thing. And I'm like, do you know what goes into that?
Yeah.
No. I'm like, exactly.
Welcome back to another episode of the Mission Controls podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stearns with Ascend Digital Agency. We got Kasey in the building today. What up, Kasey?
Hello. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well. Don't mind me. I'm just playing with my little black magic thing here. So our setup, the camera's feed into this, it feeds in the microphone, and I get here and just go do stuff like this. It's only for your viewing pleasure.
Right?
Until it breaks. Listen, I'm really good at breaking shit. Christian's really good at fixing shit. So, he's like the yin to my yang. You know what I mean? We all need a strong counterpart. Coming off a long weekend, big Bills win yesterday. I don't know if we got any Bills fans, but I myself am a diehard, and to watch them just dismantle the 49ers was a real treat, just a feather in the cap to end the Thanksgiving weekend. So one of many things I'm grateful for. Grateful for the team at Roofer for help making this happen. If you guys need roof quotes, instant roof measurements, CRMs, clean and pristine proposals, give your folks no choice but to buy from you. Hit the link down in the description. You'll be happy you did. Kasey, what do you do? Why are you here?
What do I do? Why am I here? I mean, that's a very existential question I wasn't really prepared for. No, I'm just kidding. No, I run a CRM consulting company. Ultimately, I help business owners understand how to utilize their technology in their business more effectively and empower their team to be more effective with technology. That's the short of it anyway. I could go on a lot longer, but I'll stop.
That's a compelling elevator pitch, and we'll peel that back. We're going to do the old onion experiment. Just keep peeling back layers. What's the name of the company?
Name of the company is Clientric CRM Consulting.
Clientric. I like that. Focus on the client. Yeah, that's well played.
I know too.
So, yeah, look at you. There's efficiency even in the name, so you know it's real, folks. So if I'm a roofer, I got a CRM, I hire somebody, how do I get my team to fucking use it?
Oof, that's a good question. Make sure that they are bought into it. That's the number one thing I highly recommend that you need to do is you need to get your team bought into the idea of a CRM or a new CRM, depending if you're switching.
Yeah, that sounds easy enough. How do I do it?
Easy, right? You make so that they can actually get some value out of it. What in their life is happening that this technology is going to change? So you need to better understand what is in it for them. How is this going to change their lives and how is it going to change the business? And so it's also about empowering them to understand the larger picture of the business and giving them the ability to ultimately have control of how they want to work. And so the more empowerment they get, the more likely they are to embrace it.
Okay. So don't just hire some guy off Facebook, start rebuilding shit and then throw it on their desk like, hey, here you go. That's
not how it works. No, that's the recipe for disaster. 100%.
What should So in my mind, there would be somewhat of like a preface, a prepping phase, if you will, like, hey guys, but wouldn't that, in my mind, prior to this, there would have to be somewhat of routine meetings to check in on what they're currently doing, what they're currently using, how it's operating, where we're falling short, inefficiencies, things like that. So let's assume that those things aren't taking place. How do we get a team who's not used to this cadence of meetings and this spotlight on certain things? How do we get them bought into even the meetings themselves, the requisite meetings to be able to have these conversations where it's not, this is just Mike micromanaging us. This is actually for our benefit and is going to help our company make our jobs easier, et cetera.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, it has to come from the top. So leadership has to take the time and effort to help them understand why it's important and get them on board with it. Outside of that, it really comes down to mapping out how your business is operating so it can operate more effectively. Let's be honest, every one of our businesses has its own inefficiencies. You can't get away from that. And most people that we talk with don't really know how they operate. And so when you dive into it, and you talked about peeling back the onion, we'll peel it back as far as we can go. But most businesses do not have a clear idea of how they actually work. That's something that really surprises me, coming from a very process oriented mindset. You have to understand how your business works. A lot of people don't have their salespeople even tracking their activities. They don't know what they're doing. That's a recipe for disaster. And so there's going to be some people that as you start to tell them these things, there's people that are going to be worried. They're going to be worried about change. People don't like change. People hate change. But it has to happen for the evolution of the business and for the business to be more successful and grow to, the owners or principals, founders, whatever you want to call yourself, wildest dreams. You need to be able to convey and basically sell your team on this idea. If you could sell a roof, you could sell your team on why this software, this technology is important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I deal with and have dealt with a lot of contractors, 1,000 plus in some capacity. And I think that these issues or inefficiencies or shortcomings, right? Running everything out of your head, not having things on paper, not having SOPs. They're problematic. They're problematic at $500,000, at $2 million. They're disproportionately problematic at 10 million, at 15 million, at 7 million. Because the inefficiencies, they don't scale proportionately, and they result in, when you're running around, you've got 2 people in the company, you're doing 1.7 million, you and the said other person can kind of make up for those inefficiencies because, you yourself, you'll work 60 hours and make sure everything is done the right way, 70 hours if need be. We've all been there if you started a business. You can't expect the same out of a team of 15 people. Right. 100%. And the impact that makes is, it's friction in the workflow. So people like their job less. It's harder for them to do the same job. Things get fucked up, right? Whether it's material ordering, whether it's quality control walkthroughs. Crazy enough, a lot of the time it's collecting money is what I find. That's something that gets missed all the time. And it's like, I've got $500,000 out. Well, how long has it been out? 45 days plus. Yeah. Why? It's just something.
That one and leads. Like the leads is also a really surprising one. When people, I know you know this because I know this is your world, but leads just go into a bucket of nowhereness. They just kind of go into the ether and they just sit there. And people are wondering why, things aren't closing, why our salespeople aren't doing things. And that's why they're just not getting to the leads fast enough. They're not servicing the leads. It's a huge one I see on the front end.
Yeah, and inevitably that sparks a conversation. What, you guys aren't doing a good job? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's pull up these 100 leads, see what happened.
Yeah,
why wasn't this call answered? What happened on this call? How many times did this one get followed up on? It's tough. Bullets are flying. Everything's happening. There's fires to put out. And you're just focused on getting through the day whole or some semblance of feeling whole. Completely understand it. But if you're feeling these pains as a business owner, when is the optimal time to take a step back and say, I need help. I have to figure this out.
I mean, really, you should be doing it right away. But the real answer is, as it's starting to impact your bottom line, it's too late. So you need to be proactive. If it's already impacting your bottom line, if you're coming back and you're saying, hey, it's a slower season now, and now I care about these leads, it's too late. That's at the point where now you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, hoping you get something out of it. And almost certainly you're going to get nothing out of it. And so you have to be very proactive in this. It's not something that... When you start feeling those pain points, the issue is it's likely going to be too late. And so you have to start now. You have to start now in the off season right now. We all know that it's winter time for a lot of folks. And you need to be proactive and think about, what does my business need next season in order to be successful? That's how you should be thinking about these things. Implement throughout next season. You fix the problems that come up and then do the same thing over again the following slow season. For those individuals that do not have a slow season, well, then it doesn't really matter. You just got to
start yesterday. Yeah. It's funny. In my experience, you have a large percentage of people who they just want the problem solved and they want to pay people to have the problem solved and they don't want to have to engage much in it. And for that reason, there's the out of the box CRM, some better than others. if it works for you, it works for you. But they don't see enough value into diving past, like into their processes and getting past some of the bottlenecks or constraints that they have to where you can actualize a customized solution for your business that is optimal. The other side of it I see is we've got this $100,000 CRM that we could build for you. And I don't know, dude, I did a poll on people using HubSpot maybe like a week ago, and HubSpot's super expensive and it wasn't remarkably positive feedback, right? So it's not always pay the top dollar, you're going to get what you pay for. So how does an owner of a business that doesn't have experience in this type of thing feel confident in making a decision? Should I use this? Should I use that? What's right for me?
That's really interesting because I literally just got off a call with a roofing contractor who's going through that. Do I use this tool or do I use this out of the box solution? It works for me right away. I can start using it. And what I told them really comes down to what your goals are as a business owner. What are you trying to accomplish? Like, you have to understand the why. If your why doesn't align with the technology, then it doesn't matter. It's not going to work out. It's not going to be a match. So you really have to understand the business goals. If you're trying to grow and scale and become a $100 million company, a lot of these platforms are they can help you get there, certainly, but there's going to be a lot of issues in there because you're going to face so many other things that are going to come up. You just need to act quicker. You need to be able to have more control over what's actually happening. Whereas other businesses who maybe are just happy with where they're at and, they just need something simplistic. They don't necessarily have someone that can take on the tech side of things. Digital literacy is maybe lower. Then those out of the box tools are going to be a better fit. If you're starting to build a team around technology, you have some of these people coming in who understand technology, want to take it on, excited about that opportunity, that's going to forever change how your business operates because you can actually make it however you want, where these other tools out there, these out of the box tools, just will only work a certain way. You can only ever get so much out of them. You can't continue to squeeze it and continue to get the orange juice as you've squeezed out everything, whereas these other tools, you can continue to do whatever you want. And that's a blessing and a curse for a lot of it too, is because it is so expansive, it becomes overwhelming. And that's where this person was at. How do I start? How do I even do this? And the truth of it is you have to dedicate time. A large portion of it is time. It's not even money at this point. You have to make sure that you're dedicating time to understanding how this tool operates, and you are setting yourself up for success by understanding it. A lot of these people who want this hands-off experience, so many times it ends up in failure because they don't want to be a part of it. They just want it to work out of the box. Magic. They just want magic. But a lot of these tools, it's not magic. No matter what technology you use, there's always something you have to do. You have to learn. You have to become an expert in it, or someone on your team does. Yeah. And you need to spend the time, let alone the money. No matter what system you're using, you should be doing that. But it becomes more imperative for these customizable solutions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I had the experience. So what I tell people, we have people that reach out and they might be doing $1 million, they might be doing 3 million. And some of the ones that are $1 million, $1.5 million, sometimes don't even have CRMs. And what I tell them is, like, you have to get into something. And I get it. Like, you're running a business, you need to generate leads, you got to be able to pay people, you have to have cash flow. Everyone's concerned that they're going to go out of business, which I get in the first couple of years. Okay, so maybe you don't buy an Ascend custom site. Maybe you don't go for a full customized build out. But what I tell them is, you have to do something. Get away from the notepad, because look, it's just you right now, and it's going to suck you. Anytime you're building out a CRM, I don't care, even if it is out of the box, systematizing your processes within that CRM is going to suck. No matter how easy it is or out of the box, it's going to suck. Yeah. You know what's going to suck a lot more? You learning on the fly with 5 other employees.
And trying to teach them your paper, what's in your head, and then just failing and getting frustrated and then leaving 6 months or 4 months after you train them up or what you thought was training them. And then you're back at square one. And it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And I've got a client right now that their experience is the exact pain point that you're kind of talking about or alluding to. Is they went with an out of a box that worked really well. They're on pace to do $20 million now. And one of their biggest gripes is, attribution, pulling reports, and creating an understanding of what's happening day to day, segmenting it by different departments within their company to be able to ultimately hold people accountable and improve, right? So we if we know the data that we want, we know the indicators, we know exactly what we're looking for, we have to be able to easily find that information. Now we can develop a plan to optimize it, make it better, make the team members better, train them up, right?
Yeah.
And
or ask, are we capturing the right information? I've seen that so often. Are we actually getting the information or the KPIs? Are we generating the specific KPIs we need out of this?
Yep. And they can't do that. So, and if you've ever, if you're a contractor, this is what I'll say to anyone that's younger and you're going to embark into getting into a CRM. What I'll tell you is anyone that's gone through having a CRM and then transitioning a year, 2 years, 3 years in, if you understood the pain of that transition, it's not easy. It sucks. And it may very well be worth it. And you might be very happy you did it. But the sooner you get into a solution that's going to work for you for the long term, the better off you are.
There's a crazy stat. It was something like 25% of all businesses switch CRMs like every year. And it was like absolutely insane. I'm not terribly surprised because, I mean, we can see from these Facebook groups, what is the best CRM? And it's just crazy what you get when you put that out into these groups, and what actually happens and what people are saying. Because there are so many out there and it is overwhelming. And out of the box tools are one thing. And then you throw in these customizable solutions, which is a whole different thing. And it's overwhelming to people. And it's unfortunate that this industry is very cutthroat, the technology side of things. And I wish we could all play nicer, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's the recommendations. I always say, look for people that have, if you're getting recommended to a company a few times, talk to those people, reach out to them. We as humans want to feel good about decisions that we make. So if I just purchased a CRM for $40,000 to be built and somebody asks a week later, what CRM are you guys using? I'm excited to tell people I chose this CRM. Or if I worked with this marketing agency, I just signed a $150,000 retainer agreement for a year or 2 years with them. I'm going to be excited. I want to feel good about that decision I made. So I'm going to go out there and be like, I would choose this company. Check in on that, because there's a honeymoon period, and eventually that person may very well still feel good about it 6 months or a year from now. Those are the type of people you want to talk to, ones that have invested into the solution, whatever that solution is. I don't care if you're hiring a painting contractor to paint your house or if you're buying a new website. Talk to the people that have actually experienced and realized the result that they were looking for, about how the process went, communication. Yep. What did it look like for you and your team? Don't just take every Tom, Dick, and Harry off Facebook's recommendation that I use this person and take that as gospel. Now you put in a situation where you circle back 6 months from now and you're like, what the fuck did I do? What did I do? Ask questions. It's okay to be somewhat skeptical. It's okay.
Funny. It's called the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is like a company that does a lot of like research and market analysis and things like that. And it's really funny if you look at their graph and how they define the hype cycle when it comes to technology. So the hype cycle is, especially when you're talking with people, exactly what you're saying. You're talking with the salesperson. They say, yeah, you can do everything you want in this tool. It's going to be super easy. It's going to be great. You're like, yes, I signed this contract. I'm super excited. Can't wait to get started. And your excitement levels go up. And then you get to the point where like, yeah, I can do anything. I'm doing all the research. And then you start to go down when you realize, wait, this is more work than I thought. And you get to this dip, you get into this giant valley, depending on, what technology you're using. It probably varies between, the 3 to 6 months where you really start to hit that realization where like, oh God, what did I do?
Yeah.
And then you slowly come back up when you get back to that area where you're like, okay, I can actually see the end of the tunnel here. I know exactly where we're going. I now understand that, it can't do this without doing all this other stuff. I know it's not down here. And you kind of find yourself somewhere in the middle between those two. And it's really funny because I've seen my clients dip through that. And now it's something I actually mentioned after kind of experiencing that. It's something we talk about up front. Like technology is not like as straightforward as a lot of people think in implementing these things. And a lot of people are just like, I just want to press a button and do this thing. And I'm like, do you know what goes into that?
Yeah.
No. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah. This is can I just have AI do it?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's one of those things that people have a preconceived notion of what it takes to do, and they're very wrong most of the time. You have to bring them back down to reality, which is tough as a consulting company, because like you also get really excited about their excitement. You're like, yeah, we can do all these things, but like, by the way, just like maybe tone it down a bit. Don't get so excited.
Yeah, listen, I want you to be excited, but not too excited, all right? And, you know, when we hit milestones, I don't need an attaboy or high five. And at the same time, when we hit unintended, you know, roadblocks that we have to work through, I also don't want you screaming about, you know, we're the worst. I tell people that all the time because we don't have the ability to give you, when somebody calls me, well, how much is it going to cost to accomplish this? I don't fucking know. I can tell you what's happened for our clients over the last 12 and 24 months, 36 months. And I would hope that it would be similar. We're going to do the same things. We're going to work just as hard. Yeah. You know, and I'll tell them, you know, the lead costs on average for Google Ads is probably around $200. There's certain markets that are exceptional, where it's a little bit more, a little bit less. On average, 12-month campaign, $200. Now, if it's $138, I don't need you calling me, telling me I'm the best. Boy, you are an absolute guru. Don't need it. Also, if it's $312 a month for a month, I don't want you calling me freaking out. I mean, I'll give you there. Everything's going to be all right. We're doing it. We'll walk through everything we're doing, but there's cycles to it, which I had Nick Perret on and we were talking about this last week. There's always some fluidity in what we do. And I'd imagine it's the same thing with you with a contractor, right? If you're doing a demo on an interior and you have to do a change order because you didn't know what was behind that wall and you run into a big pile of shit that's going to take an extra day of labor and $1,500 of material, you didn't know it. You couldn't have possibly known it, right? So you have the conversation on the front end. These are things that might happen. We got to be prepared for it. I don't want you freaking out if it does. I'm not trying to get you. It's just kind of how it goes. Yeah.
But people are still always surprised. There's still this misconception about technology, and I'm sure even on lead generation and things like that people just still don't quite get the full picture of it. Oh, but I mean, to be fair, like a lot of contractors just don't know that world, and that's totally understandable too. So it's just kind of you want to find someone who can kind of guide you and lead you through, and at least have gone through all of these things together to know what success looks like, to be able to hold their hand through it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. If you come to my house and quote out a bunch of shit and I mean, I'm taking you at your word. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to have to talk to some people, but I still have the most surface level understanding possible as to what it is you do, what it takes to actualize that logistically. Yeah. So you can't know everything. I know very, very little about a lot, and there's a couple things I know a lot about, right? Far many more that I know nothing or very little about, and that's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
As long as you admit it too, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on it. Everyone's got to work on it. Be 1% better every day. That's it. All right, so if it's impacting your bottom line, start yesterday. Get somebody in there, fix your shit up. What is some of the most Let's see here. What is some of the most constructive feedback, we'll say, that you hear? And I don't know, maybe you don't run into this, but for us, a lot of times it's, I worked with this company, they said this is what actually happened. Do you get that in your space? And if so, what is some of the feedback that you get as far as misalignment or not understanding expectations on both sides?
It comes down to what the technology is capable of doing and what people's vision is of what that technology is capable of doing at the end of a project. And that's where some of the disconnect we've seen, where, a lot of people don't necessarily have a full vision of what the product is. Envisions, again, kind of going back to that hype cycle, they envision they're going to have access to every little thing, every little piece of information they've ever wanted. Their wildest dreams are coming true. And then I have to bring them back down to reality. Like, nope, that's not what we're going to do. But they still don't fully understand it. And so it's something that we've gotten better at actually conveying up front as well, as to like, okay, this is actually what is going to be happening at the end of it. Technology is one of those things, and just like your industry, I'm sure as well, it's not tangible. You can't touch it, right? There's all this stuff that happens in the back end. in the background of, your business operating, and what does it actually mean? And so it's tough when people can't see that. At least when a house is getting built, you can see that. It's very clear what's happening. Walls are up, wonderful. Like electrical's in, plumbing's in, drywall's up. Now, that being said, is it done right? Once the drywall's up, you don't know. But still, at the end of the day, you see it there. It's in there, hopefully, right? So it's more tangible, it's more visible, whereas a lot of what we do seems like black magic to a lot of people, which is kind of a blessing and a curse again, because you give people what they're asking for, but at the end of the day, sometimes you're not able to deliver on what their vision is because they have a different vision, and maybe we didn't do a good enough job pulling it out, maybe they didn't do a good enough job at explaining what they actually needed, and so just making sure that you merge that up as much as possible and set that expectation of like, okay, we're going to get this right. Like it's not going to be done right away on the first shot. We need you to test it. We need you to play around with it. We need your feedback. And a lot of time people think that they don't need to give feedback, much like yourself with lead generation. You need to know what leads are good and what leads are not good to know how to improve the campaign. We need to do the exact same thing on the technology side. If we don't get that feedback, we're screwed. Like we're just going to think that great, everything's wonderful, even though we know that we can't get it right on the first shot. There's no way we can do that. So we need to be sure that we can actually get that feedback and make sure that you're conveying properly and communicating with your vendors as they're building the stuff out.
Yeah, we use Zoho. I know that you guys predominantly build Zoho, right?
Yeah.
Is it exclusively or for the most part?
We're opening it up. We like to dabble.
Fair enough. It's funny because I'm guilty of the same thing. I'll send Dan, one of my team members that kind of works on iterations within Zoho. I'm like, God damn it, Dan, I just need this to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, Mike, that affects this, and this. Okay. So while you make it seem like it's Dan flick a switch, it's 7.5 hours of work that's going to be going into actualizing that, and then testing, then fixing whatever fucks up in between now and then. Yeah. I'm like, God damn it, Dan, just get it done.
He doesn't like it. And then Mike needs to test it and tell me why he doesn't like it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, God damn it, Dan, just get it done.
Yeah.
Solutions, not excuses. Second core value here. No. And I try to be cognizant of that and, put the ball in his court. Okay. So what is it going to take to make this happen? Right. So that he can have time to look at it, assess it, diagnose it, give me a reasonable timeline. And I always tell them, give me worst case scenario, because I don't want to get to a point where you give me a date. We get to that date and it's not done, because that's my pet peeve. So I'm trying to be a better leader. Let me put the ball in your court. Tell me how long it's going to take. Listen. And like I said, give me worst case scenario, right? Yeah. You sprain your toe. I want to make sure this is still done by that date. So account for all the variables.
100%.
It's frustrating. I wish I knew how to do it. I should probably take more time to figure it out.
So I got people to do it for you.
I guess, are there resources that maybe business owners can use to have even more of just a conceptual understanding as it relates to taking, if they have their processes, what it takes to get the ball across the goal line to start using it within a CRM and making their CRM and their customer experience more representative of what they have either in their head or on paper?
I think the best thing you can do is plug that into ChatGPT. It's been funny. We've played around with it so much, but with AI tools out there, you just tell it what you want and you say what system you want to use, and it'll spit back some information that is actually quite valuable. It's actually really quite amazing when you dive into some of these tools and the conversations you can have and how quickly it actually understands what your needs are and how you can get ballpark understanding of what actually needs to happen. And I don't think enough people are taking ownership with the tools that are out there now. Obviously, again, the technology is empowering people. That's what we're trying to do here. And if you're not on the AI train, I highly recommend it. But at the end of the day, you can plug anything you want into there and it will give you decent ballpark estimates of what actually needs to happen and gives you the understanding of what you need. So it actually maps out kind of the blueprint of what you need. And I think that's really cool. And, 6 months ago, had you asked me that question, I probably wouldn't have said that. But now that's my go-to is it's amazing what you can actually get out of it.
Yeah. And in last week's episode, we were talking about it. And similarly, Nick said, something along those lines. And he mentioned like using chunking. So I don't put, hey, I'm a roofing contractor. I need you to type out an entire process systematically from start to finish for my customers, everything within it. It's more like, okay, so what should the first milestone be as a retail roofing contractor in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Okay.
Yeah.
What should the rest of the customer's life cycle look like? What kind of milestones should be within the leads? Or what type of subtask should be within lead, whatever, right? So it's kind of giving you some opportunity for it to synthesize the information, understand the context, and then elaborate. And look, here's the thing. You don't have to take everything it tells you, right? Like you prompt it a bunch of times. There's pieces that you like. Maybe it sparks some creative genius within you. And you're like, well, I like this and this, but I don't love this. Hey, give me an alternative to this because of X, Y, and Z. Refine it, right?
100%.
It's a great resource. That's a smart answer. Good for you, Kasey.
No, and I think outside of that, if you were to go the old, I'll call it the old route now, is it really comes down to talking with your team to understand what you actually need. A lot of time business owners have that 10,000 foot view, but they don't have the granular view of what their team is actually doing, and hearing the problems that they're actually having day in, day out. And those problems, if they were heard, could make a big impact. It could help make a big decision. Why are we doing things that way? That's crazy. Let's do this way, or whatever it is. So once you start to understand what the problems are, you can know how to solve them. So once you understand what the problems are, you can actually start solving them. If you're just wandering around aimlessly, it's not going to do anyone any good. So you also have to be sure, and this is something that should be done anyway, in addition to all the other things that we were just talking about with ChatGPT and throwing it in there, you still need to understand, what problems people that are facing, the daily tasks, what they're actually facing to solve for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good point. So you take a CRM, a customer hires you and fix my stuff, Kasey, or build me something new. And then you do that. When that happens, like you said, a lot of this is taking place on the back end. They're not seeing it, but I'm sure there's some sort of documentation where they can view progression and things like that, milestones. But let's say you go start to finish. What are some of the biggest and most impactful problems that you're solving for typically?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The biggest thing is process. In order for us to do our job, much like a builder needs a blueprint to build a house, we need a blueprint for ourselves. We need to know where we're going, what we're actually trying to achieve. And so much like building a blueprints to a house, if you're architecting something, you don't want the bathroom to end up in the middle of the kitchen. You need to know exactly where things are going. And so you have to map it out, and you have to have a really good understanding of who's touching what and how it's impacting everyone else in the organization. Going back to that other comment you had, with your employee, where he was, it's going to touch 7 other things. It's not just this one thing. Because when you change one thing, it could have a cascading effect that affects everything else. And I think we all know this, or I hope we can all agree on this, but the customer experience is king, regardless of what people say. If the customer is not having a 5-star experience, it's not a good process. And so that's really what we hone in on, focus in on, is we make sure that, you're designing the technology around giving a 5-star review. And that's what I love to think about, because if you're not going after that 5-star review, if you're just, how can I make my team more efficient? Well, it doesn't matter if you make your team more efficient. If you don't get that 5-star review, that's going to impact your business more than anything. So aim for that, solve for that. And then the efficiencies are going to fall from that as you're going through this.
That makes sense, because if you, like you said, if you understand why you're not getting 5-star reviews or why that 5-star experience isn't taking place, you understand the challenges. Now you can reverse engineer what part of the process is breaking down that's causing A, B, or C.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we did this, and sometimes you might not know the answer, right? A is happening, therefore we're not getting a review. How do we stop that?
Yeah.
Try B, try C, right? Some of the biggest changes I've made in my life, where I've thrown my hands up and I've got no fucking clue. And these are things, not just inconsequential things. Years ago, I was I was addicted to opiates, and I'm like, I got to get off drugs. How do I do it? I don't fucking know. So I took a leave of absence from work because I looked at it. I'm like, well, when I come to work, I get opiates. So maybe if I pull myself out of that environment, maybe I'll stop doing that. Now, it took me overdosing to realize that I really needed to do it. But that worked for me, right? Luckily, I got it right. Now, I had tried 5 or 6 times before that and didn't get it right. So it wasn't on the first attempt. So it was, okay, what am I doing now? Let's try something different, right?
100%.
And that's okay. And maybe it takes you 1 try, maybe it takes you 10. But that comes back to always trying to improve, right? So if you understand that you've got an issue, no matter how big or small, and you want to solve for it, try different things. So if you don't know the answer, right. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to keep moving forward and trying new things. And
that's it.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't give up. Don't give up. No one likes a quitter.
Exactly.
Are you a quitter? Don't be a quitter.
I am not a quitter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's why you're here today. Listen, we tried to make this happen like 3 times. Things kept coming up. But you know what? We persevered. And look at us now, thriving.
Yeah. This wonderful podcast episode.
Yeah. I mean, this thing is a banger. How much should it cost to build a CRM if I'm doing a custom solution?
I see you asked the question that you don't have an answer to as well. I don't have an answer. It really depends on the size of the business. It could range from 25,000 to 125,000. There's so many variables. But what I do like to tell people is typically you can expect probably milestones of anywhere from 15 to 20,000. And we roughly do 4 milestones. And these 4 milestones are the sales process. Then we have production. Then we have finance. And then we have reporting. So we typically follow those 4. And they're usually around 15 to 20,000 if you really, really want to dive into it. There's, again, a wide range within that of what your needs actually are. But that is what we've probably done more often than not to get people where they want to be. So their business is way better off than what it was, but still there's always going to be room for improvement. And so those 4 milestones we found to be key to success because it allows us to focus and hone in on those specific areas. Those are very clear lines of demarcation of when a process ends and a new process begins. And it's really nice and simple for everyone to work on and to understand who is going to own what.
It's really interesting. Everyone loves numbers, but numbers can be tricky. And it's funny how they can evoke different emotions, even though they're proportionally the same. So, for example, if you're doing $750,000 in revenue, 1% is $7,500.
Yep.
If you're doing $25 million in revenue, 1% is $250K. So if you look at it, it's like it's going to cost me 1% of my revenue. Doesn't seem too bad when it's $7,500.
No, at all.
If it's $250K, that feels like a lot of money. And we deal with this in advertising all the time. You know, when companies grow, they grow. It's like, okay, if you're not at the point where your appetite for growth is satiated and like we want more, we want to do more. It's like, okay, well, we can scale this budget. We can do this. And sometimes it's out of the confines of what we do. It's like, you might want to take a look at doing this. Well, that puts my marketing budget at $450,000. It's like, dude, you want to do $30 million. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. And I'll kindly remind them, like, let's take a look at where we were 2 years ago, revenue-wise advertising. What percentage of budget you were investing to get there. And now you have the same appetite for growth, and growing from 2 to 4 million is a lot different than going from 15 to 30.
Yeah. It's exponentially more difficult.
So, all the low-hanging fruit's gone. We're climbing to the top of the tree to get every coconut. All right. So, and I realized this. I recently traded in my old car, and it was more expensive than any of my other cars, and it was just jarring the amount of money that I was going to lose trading this thing in. And it was like 12, it was like 12 or 15%. But it hits a lot different when it's not a $12,000 car.
It's that sticker shock in a way.
I'm like, hold on a second. I feel like I'm getting hosed here. You guys are hosing me for sure. And then I took a step back, right? Got out of my emotional bag. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Fuck. It's 100%.
The one thing that is really interesting, a lot of people forget when I'm talking with them who are coming from an out of the box system is they're primarily a lot more expensive than the more customizable solutions. Now, the one we work with is a lot more reasonably priced than some of the other systems that are out there. But really what it comes down to is understanding your ROI. So taking the full picture on your financial analysis and your ROI analysis. Is it actually that crazy? If you're going to be spending, $100,000 to $200,000 on this out of the box system, and yet you want to spend, let's say, $100,000 on this new customizable system that gives you everything you want, solves all your problems, and you don't have to pay that $200,000 or whatever it is over and over every single year. And so that's what a lot of people tend to forget, is that when you annualize these things year over year over year, and if you're looking to grow and scale, these things become a lot less expensive.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I'm not here to shit on any of the CRMs, because quite honestly, if you're doing 5-6 million, and I talk to a lot of guys, right? Some guys are, I want a 3x over the next 18 months. And that's fine if that's what you really want. But then I always talk to them, what comes along with that? Okay, great, more money. But what else comes along with that?
100%.
And when you start asking questions, right, because I have a lot of experience, I've worked with guys that, they've gone from a couple $100,000 of revenue to 20 million. I've gone with guys that, they were at $1 million or up to 15, 20, and they quickly realize, I'm okay taking a step back. I don't want to take that next step to 30. In fact, I want to take a step back, and 10 to 15 is fine. Yeah. Because there's things that you're not accounting for in that growth: headaches, work-life balance, if that's a thing. I don't know what that is, but it's stressful, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're doing 5 to 6 million, that's where you want to be. I don't think the out-of-box solution is a bad thing for you. Agreed. But to your point, if you're trying to scale from 10 to $100 million over 36 months, I think a customized solution makes a lot of sense, because there are so many things that could be solved for. And not everything, when you talk about your ROI calculator, not everything is going to be dollars and cents, right? It's like when you're talking with a manufacturer and you're shopping the manufacturer, and it's like, what's my rebate here? What's my rebate at the supply house? With a supplier, you're not taking into consideration, hey, if you get in a jam, you're under ordered, will they come out that moment and deliver you an extra 3 bundles of shingles, right? That's valuable. Having that type of relationship is valuable. So while they might give you a little bit less as far as a monetary reimbursement, they're looking out for you, which saves face with the customer and makes a massive impact. Yeah. So I implore people to not always look at things. Obviously consider money, right? That's very important in a capitalist society, but take into consideration some of the other fringe benefits that might not be captured when you're looking at a spreadsheet as far as dollars in, dollars out. So in the instance of a CRM, what is the overall sentiment of the employees as a result of using the CRM? What does their work life look like? What is their duties, their responsibilities? How do those evolve by implementing systematic things within a CRM to make their job easier, to make it less likely that there's double work being done, 2 people doing the same thing, or one person's supposed to be doing it and nobody doing it? And how does that impact the customer experience? These things aren't going to show up on your quantitative analysis.
Yeah.
But they're worth considering for sure.
100%. I would say the other thing there is considering the power of the tools available. Now, we talk about CRMs. CRMs are interesting because I feel like CRMs are actually constantly changing. A lot of CRMs out there are turning into more ERP systems where they give you a full business suite of tools available to take advantage of. There's a lot of CRM systems out there that are no longer just CRMs. It's not just a customer relationship management tool. It's what it stands for, but it's no longer just that. Mm-hmm. These things are becoming a lot more robust pieces of technology, and they allow you to run your operations fully based off of this. So what other technology can you eliminate or alleviate? And like you were talking about, a lot of these businesses that I talk with have a lot of different technology tools they're using. They don't talk to one another. So a lot of the time they're spending time entering information over here. Information is getting entered in incorrectly. Their team is spending countless hours doing needless work. And so can you get rid of that? And it goes back to, can you make your team happier? What is that worth as well, to alleviate some of that? Can you get your team to not, be doing the mundane, shitty work that they absolutely hate and give them better enjoyment? Do you not need some admin folks? Do you have too many people that are costing your business overhead because they're doing too much of admin work of just entering information? Can you use those people more effectively? Do they want to be used more effectively? And it always comes back to those other questions. When you start, again, peeling back that onion, you start to see all these little things that come with it.
Yeah, that's a fact. And it's worth noting, if you could save 10, 15 minutes a day by having a centralized solution where the communication's taking place and you're not popping from platform A to B to C, pulling this into here, importing, etc., it seems trivial, inconsequential, not a big deal. But I'll tell you what, 15 minutes a day, that's an hour and 15 a week, 52 weeks. I mean, you've got a week and a half of work time from somebody that you're paying a salary or hourly that you can now allocate to having them doing something that's actually productive that can't be solved for by use of just optimization of your existing, platform, right?
100%.
It's a lot of time.
Or
you can give them an extra paid week off.
Exactly. And the more people you have, it just it's a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially if you got 10, 15 people you could do that for, that's like 500 hours of work time.
What's up?
It's a lot of time. What could you do with 500 hours?
Oh, I would have so much more fun with 500 free hours.
Oh man, that's some really good stuff. So I always like to open it up. If you've got questions, comments, concerns for me, feel free to pop off.
Let's do it. What is the biggest thing you see with contractors? I'm going to turn the tables on you. What is the biggest thing you see contractors struggle with in relation to their CRM systems and or their lead generation or their marketing? I've experienced this several times, but I'm curious what you say. How do you make that gap? How do you make those two systems work smoothly together? And what typically do you see?
First of all, I love the fact that you pulled the fucking Uno reverse on me. Well played. Okay. It's a good question. Typically, this conversation comes about where there's opposing perspective. So we'll hop on a call with a client. We think things are going amazingly well, and they're less than thrilled or not as proportionally excited as we are. And so why? And now we start diving in, right? Because everything we do is tracked. We've got an Ascend lead radar where it tracks all the leads, organic, PPC, etc. What happened here? What happened here? Now we start looking at and uncovering, okay, why? What's happening with all these leads? Okay, they're not going into appointments, or they're being set, but they're not being sold. So now we start to understand, okay, it might be a sales thing, or it might be a documentation thing, or it might be a variety, like fill in the blank. So then we could say, okay, like what is the customer life cycle? Who's responsible for this? How often are you meeting with the sales team? And like our job is not to come in and train your sales team. If we can help highlight some things that are anemic to where they can then solve for them, fantastic. Like we want to do everything that we can to help our customers. I'm not a fucking sales coach. You want a sales coach? Hit up Deshaun, hit up Chuck Toki. They're great. But we can help highlight these things. And a lot of the times there are systematic bottlenecks or oversights that happen as a result of inefficiencies to where the desired outcome that you want just isn't taking place. I would say awareness would be the main culprit. They're just not aware of these things. And that's not a knock on everybody. Like, we're all running a business. We're trying to do our best. But it's important to make it a priority, especially when you're investing money into growing your company and whatever that is, whether it's a CRM, it's marketing, advertising, it's human capital, staff. Invest time. Make sure that the rigors of the job don't push that down as a priority to the bottom to where a year from now you're still unaware of what's going on, because it's easier for that to happen. You snap a finger, blink an eye, you've been in business for 5 years and you still have no idea, right? But things are going good enough.
Yep.
Dedicate time, right? Put your phone on D&D, shut your office door, your bedroom door, wherever you're working out of, and start with an hour a week. Yeah, this time is going towards me tracking the leads that came in, who ran them, where they came from, and who sold what. Yep. Because there's some pretty remarkable things that can happen if you have access to that information. So for instance, if you've got 3 sales reps and you're giving, let's assume in a perfect world, you're giving them all 10 leads from Google, 10 referrals, 10 Facebook leads, and 10 yard side leads, you might notice that some of your reps are better at closing Facebook leads. Some are better at closing Google leads. You might notice that they're all killing it. You might notice that they all suck. There's a lot of things that you can notice, and then based off your findings, you can now train them. So for instance, if you've got Jimmy and Johnny, and Jimmy's closing his Google leads at 45%, Johnny's closing at 20%, let's have a meeting about it. And you don't necessarily have to call out Johnny for closing at 20%. Bring Jimmy up though. Give him acknowledgement. He deserves a little praise. Let's talk about what's happening on your sales calls that you're doing so well, right? And by virtue of that, you're helping make Johnny better in a way that's not demeaning. And Jimmy feels good about it because now he's getting some praise. So now he's more motivated to go out there and get after her. And you can do that consistently and then create sales guys are competitive, right? Yeah. Most sales guys, they got an ego. They want to be the best. Help them be the best. Well, it comes back to having meetings, and you don't want to just have check the box meetings. We're having, okay, you're at this. You guys need to fucking go out there and do better. This is our goal. Why aren't you there? There's a lot of different ways as far as like cadence of the meetings, as far as the substance of these meetings, how they're framed. These things all these intricate details are very important to how people feel when they walk out of that meeting. Yeah. Right. 100%. So I think that's something worth mentioning.
I love that you said that because it parallels so much of what I do too, and how just taking time to understand, when we ask for feedback and things like that, what can you do with that once you get that feedback? You can start to visualize it more effectively as well as you're going through an implementation. You can then, give your team updates, show them cool shit that's happening that's going to like impact their work and how they become better, and they can be a part of that process. And I think one of the things, going to your point too, is in order to take advantage of our services, ultimately, you have to be knowledgeable on what people are doing on the back end, like always should be, because it allows you to ask better questions. Mm. And a lot of people are surprised. Like some weeks, we're going to require someone to do 20 hours worth of 20 hours worth of work that week on their CRM system, because we need feedback on this thing, that thing, the other thing. We need you to dive into this. We need you to do that. We might need someone from your team to test it out too and tell us, what it's like in the field. All these little things add up, but people don't necessarily think of that. And that's why it's really, really key to ensure that, you're spending the time, you're taking the time and effort to understand what these people are actually doing, to then ask better questions, to then convey that to your team. You also have to be knowledgeable on this stuff. If you're a leader in your organization, you also have to act it. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to be successful. I've experienced that. When you're not taking ownership of it, there's no way for you to be successful. And so it's really all about, making sure that you have all the information in front of you in order to make the best decisions possible.
Yeah, that's a fact. And there's nothing more satisfying when we're getting into these meetings and we see the light bulb go off, because they haven't worked with a marketing agency that's taking an interest. It's kind of like, we did this, here's your results, here's a Google Analytics report. Yeah. See you never. Yeah. So when we start asking these questions and trying to back into how we make their business better, and you see it click, it's amazing. Especially, and then you come back to the next meeting and things have been changed and you're like, yeah, let's fucking go. I absolutely love
that's what keeps me up. That's what keeps me going with this business. What I do, it's seeing that light bulb moment and people getting excited and all the possibilities that are endless for them.
Fuck yeah, absolutely. All right, that's that question. You got anything else? Put you on the spot, bro.
It was a good answer. I liked it.
Listen, I'm just out here doing my best. So. Mike Stern's man of the people.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I love it.
Yeah, that's great, man. I'm very grateful for you stopping by. Like I said, there were some obstacles, but again, guys, you gotta have grit. You gotta persevere and make shit happen.
Exactly.
That's exactly what
this is why we're here.
Yeah. Again, shout out to the team at Roofer. Appreciate you guys. Great company. Go check them out for any needs that you have where they have solutions. They're worth a look. And thank you to you. Yeah, that's right. You for coming and watching today. Without you, none of this means anything. So yeah. drop comments, share it with somebody who'll help, and we're out of here.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.